My work, we've met over time, but our work has overlapped. Jill, thank you for coming in, and thank you for letting me embarrass you by bringing you up here. But Jack and Pat have known Janet nearly her entire life, and certainly Jill has as well. So I thought it'd be appropriate to have some folks who have known her a great deal of time to come forward. From her 1967 Franklin High School graduation, Janet Welch has grown as a person, inspired others, and set a standard impacting the lives of so many across our state. A Phi Beta Kappa graduate of Albion College and the University of Michigan Law School, she continued her lifelong education as a graduate of the Kennedy School of Government at Harvard University and was a Fulbright Scholar in comparative literature in the former Yugoslavia. As the first woman chosen to lead the 39,000-member State Bar of Michigan, she brought with her experience as a legislative analyst with the Michigan House of Representatives and the Michigan State Senate. She was also clerk for Michigan Supreme Court Justice Robert Griffin, a reporter for the Commission on the Courts in the 21st Century, and was on the staff of the Michigan Jurist Project. As neighbors, we've been able to watch our children grow and marveled at their success here at home and across the state and even across the nation. And we can always take a look and say they've carried forward not only their own skills and knowledge, but the opportunities our community afforded them. And they represent us wherever they go. Janice Welch is a Livonian who moved out while moving up. She is a product of our hometown, blended with her own skill set, and has resulted in a lifetime of achievement of which I think we can all say we're very, very proud. Ladies and gentlemen, it's my pleasure to welcome the newest member, Janet Welch.
Thank you very much. It's always wonderful to come home, and it's even more special to hear nice things said about you. That hasn't happened before. I recommend it. It's even more special when the introducer is John Walsh. I am professionally and temperamentally nonpartisan, so you could take my observation from that perspective. John Walsh has earned the respect of his colleagues in Lansing on both sides of the aisle, and that's through his intelligence and his leadership and his decency, which is exactly what you would expect from someone who was mentored by Jack Kirksey. And I will say a bit more about that in a minute. The other pleasure of this experience for me is the connection of the Livonia Hall of Fame to the Joyner family, and I will elaborate on that in a moment too. But I want to start out by saying that I am almost exactly the same age as the city of Livonia. My parents moved to Livonia when I was an infant, and at almost exactly the same time, the voters approved converting Livonia from a township to a city. Coincidence? The year after they moved here, my father, who was in the Michigan Air National Guard, was transferred to Luke Air Force Base in Arizona. And my mother was pregnant with my sister, and her job was to sell the house in Livonia and prepare to move the family to Arizona when my sister was born. 3 weeks after my sister was born, my father was killed in a crash in Arizona, and that's how I ended up growing up in Livonia. When my sister started kindergarten, my mother took a job as an elementary school secretary at Grant Elementary School. And it was a wonderful fit for her. It allowed her to have the same vacation schedule as my sister and my schedule. But more importantly than that, she found a wonderful community of friends within the Livonia Public Schools. And she really hit the jackpot when the third principal to come to Grant School came, and that was a young man at the time named Jack Kirksey. My mother was instantly his biggest fan. I really think that she would have come to work without being paid, just for the pleasure of working with Jack Kirksey. I'm glad that he didn't know that because she was our only breadwinner and it was important that she be paid. In 1961, we moved from the mean streets of Fairfield in New Rosedale to the slightly more upscale States streets near Grant Elementary, and that allowed my mother to cut her commute time in the morning from about 4 minutes down to 45 seconds. She drove 2 blocks to the parking lot of Grant Elementary School. On a heavy traffic day, it would take about a minute. You know, if there was a car coming down Hubbard Avenue, she would have to wait. But the real advantage to the move was that we were a block away from the Joyner family. And I have to say that Jerry Joyner, at the time who was, I think, beginning her career of service as the PTA president, was my earliest role model for public service. Her real name, by the way, is Mrs. Joyner, not Jerry Joyner. I first learned about the existence of the Livonia Hall of Fame and the Joyner connection and my possible induction into it not very long ago in the way we all learn things these days, which is through a rumor on Facebook that was communicated to me from my sister. And I probably didn't take it as seriously as I should have. I think I thought in the back of my mind that Bill had gone through the entire block of Indiana Street and all those people had been inducted and now he'd moved north to Washington Avenue and it was my turn. But when I was formally notified of the induction and looked at who had already been inducted into the Hall of Fame and the wonderful class that I'm joining, I was really very, very deeply honored. I have spent almost 40 years now working for and with lawyers. I'm married to a lawyer. My son is a lawyer. Despite the stereotype about lawyers, it's been a wonderful experience. Lawyers care deeply about their community and helping people, and it's been a wonderful career. But as I was growing up in Livonia, I knew no lawyers. It was all teachers, principals, Livonia Public Schools. That was my family. And I just want to say that I think the most important enduring legacy of Livonia is its commitment to education and its commitment to excellence in teaching. And I really appreciate the opportunity to stand before you and to thank the teachers of Livonia, the teachers I had and the teachers who are still here, and especially to thank the citizens of Livonia for their commitment to education. So, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Every time. Nice to meet you.
Let's get another picture.
Thank you.
Congratulations. So you work for Bob Griffin at the Supreme Court?
I did.
She's not kidding when she talks about the educational opportunities just from our class. And yes, Janet and I went to school together. But I was one of those that whenever I got transferred into an advanced placement class and I would see her answering the test exam questions, I realized I had no business being in there. But we had people like Tom Bates, who went on to become president and CEO of Schlumberger, Roland Vandenberg, who went on to become a top flight instructor after graduating from the Air Force Academy. So it was quite a class, and Janet was just one of those quality people that took their skill set out across the country and made a mark.
Livonia has always prided itself on having a number of elected officials with a sense of historical perspective, either because they have been raised in the town or they come from a long family legacy of community service. Jim McCann, completing his second term on the Livonia City Council, combines both of these elements, enhancing the quality of his service. A father who served on the council and was elected judge, a sister who now serves as a district court judge, and a wife who continues to provide leadership in the cabinet for Mayor Jack Kirksey. Jim McCann knows Livonia, and it's appropriate that he will be introducing a man whose leadership in the 60s helped shape the Livonia we know today. Please welcome with me, for purposes of introduction, Councilman Jim McCann.
I think, knowing me, Bill prepared some really nice remarks to introduce Bob Nash. I think Bob Nash would have kicked my ass if I used prepared remarks. Sorry, Sister Rosemarie, but I think she remembers Bob Nash. Bob Nash was born in 1927 at Essex Courts Apartments with an older brother, Earl. His father was a Detroit police detective. He grew up in these apartments, and somewhere down the hall or upstairs was another Livonian, Gerald Joe Taylor. Back behind the alley, there was some McCann brothers that lived in the alley behind him on Colfax. Well, they all went to Patton Gill Elementary School together and grew up, went to school. Bob Nash went on to become a teacher at Detroit Public Schools and was a driver's ed teacher, as you said. But in 1955, Jim McCann moved to Livonia, and in 58, hi Dennis, 58, he ran for council. Said to everybody, come on, Livonia's a great community, bring your families, move here. So Bob Nash, Joe Taylor, Ken Mincer, Bob Quist, all these kids that grew up together all moved out to Livonia. They all became involved. They all had a sense growing up together to get involved in the community. 1965, my dad decided to run for judge. Nash said, I think I'm going to run for council. He'd already been involved in so many things, involved in so many campaigns, and ran for council. And he served as our city councilman through 82. And then he ran for and became our city clerk until 1992. Bob Nash was a school teacher until he became the clerk. He was driver's ed. He sold real estate. He was a very hard-working person. But I think what you have to understand about these early politicians, they worked together, they played together, they all bought cottages together on one lake up north, so we had our little Livonia by the sea. There's still a couple councilmen with cottages there today. And I look back at those times. If you understand Livonia was 18,000 people in 1950. By 1960, it became 61,000 people. By 1970, it was 118,000. We were the fastest growing city in the United States. We talk about decisions today because of the economy and stuff, but there was so much growth going on. There were so many issues. I look back, when they decided to make Livonia industrial area between Schoolcraft and Plymouth Road, you're telling all these people that they grew up in these homes, you want to zone it industrial? You know, these were courageous things they did to really have the foresight to see a community growing so fast. These were tough decisions. To grow that fast, they had subdivisions going every day. They had to have the school system had to work hard. Everybody had to work together. It was a very, very difficult time. The meetings would go to 1 or 2 in the morning, and it was the integrity. Bob Nash was a true politician. You know, some people would say, you know, a true politician will kiss the babies. He not only kissed the baby, he kissed every woman in the room and shook everybody's hands. Bob Nash was a great politician, but he knew how to broker deals and get things done. I'm very proud of Bob Nash, his family. His son has stayed in Livonia. His daughter-in-law is running for city council. They've stayed committed. His son works for the court for over 25 years. This is a true family that belongs in this group, this honorable group, and I'm very proud to introduce Bob Nash to the Hall of Fame. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you very much. My name is Bob Nash Jr. Robert Nash was my father, and Jim mentioned just about everything, but just briefly, I will say that my father, Robert Nash, he truly loved the city of Livonia, and he loved serving on Livonia city government. He dedicated many years of his life in development of the city of Livonia, and he was truly honored and humbled in serving all of the citizens of Livonia. So again, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you. Yes, I was brief. Thank you very much.
Last speaker was short, that's really
Yes.
good.
Thank you again very much. Thank you.
There is a Livonia paradigm as we bring tonight's gathering to a close. It's build, stay, love, and share. Our founding fathers understood that the viability of a hometown would be found in building family-oriented institutions. And when cultural institutions were built, young families and couples were attracted, and they would stay to raise their families and into the second and third generations. With a commitment to building and establishing family traditions, a love for community becomes ingrained, not just in one generation, but for years to come. Add to that a strong sense of history embodied by organizations promoting the lessons learned over the years, and you truly have a great place to live. Throughout our first 60 years, art institutions paint a fabric with vibrant cultural and historical opportunities. From our youth symphony to our civic chorus, from our youth chorus to our historical society, from the historical society to the Wilson Barn to Greenmead, writing our history for future generations. It is appropriate tonight that we honor our Livonia ambassadors, induct them into the 1835 Livonia City Hall of Fame on October the 3rd. For they have truly helped to build so that our families can stay and love their hometown, that we can carry the message of Livonia vibrancy across the state and throughout the nation. That this is a love for a hometown that we can now share with our children and our grandchildren, passing on the heritage of a great place to live, our hometown. Please join Laura Cox and myself in acknowledging once again the class of 2013, 1835 Livonia City Hall of Fame. We stand adjourned until October next year. Thank you, good night, and thanks for sharing the evening.